explains that upon closing of the transaction, if approved by the Commission, PSNC would continue to exist as a separate legal entity, but would be an indirect subsidiary of Enbridge U.S. Incorporated. PSNC would operate under the trade name Enbridge Gas North Carolina. The application contends that the transaction is in the public interest and satisfies the standard established by North Carolina General Statute Section 62-111A, as well as the no harm standard set forth in Commission decisions applying that statute. The public staff, which represents the using and consuming public, has been made a party to this proceeding in accordance with North Carolina General Statutes Section 62-15 sub D. The public staff represents you, the using and consuming public. In addition, the Attorney General's office has been allowed to intervene in this proceeding on behalf of the using and consuming public in accordance with North Carolina General Statutes Section 62-20 and on behalf of the state and its citizens in accordance with North Carolina General Statutes Section 114-2 sub 8. On November 15th, 2023, in support of the application, EP Holdings filed the direct testimony and exhibits of Michelle Herodance, James Sanders, Christopher Johnston, and John Reed. Also on November 15th, 2023, PSNC filed the direct testimony of D. Russell Harris. On January 10th, 2024, the Commission issued an order scheduling hearings, establishing discovery guidelines, and requiring customer notice. The order scheduled 2 public witness hearings as well as an expert witness hearing to begin on this to be held in June. The intervention and participation of the public staff in this proceeding is recognized pursuant to North Carolina General Statute Section 62-15D and Commission Rule R119E. On May 29th, 2024, an agreement and stipulation of settlement was filed in this docket on behalf of PSNC, EP Holdings, and the public staff. Also on May 29th, 2024, the public staff filed the testimony of Michelle Boswell supporting the settlement agreement. On May 31st, PSNC filed the supplemental testimony of D. Russell Harris in support of the settlement agreement, and EP Holdings filed the testimony of Laszlo Varsani in support of the settlement. Right, that brings us to tonight. I will call on council now for the parties to introduce themselves for purposes of the record, and we will begin with PSNC.
Good evening, Chair Mitchell, Commissioner Brawley. I'm Mary Lynn Grigg with the law firm of McGuire Woods, appearing on behalf of Public Service Company of North Carolina.
Good evening, Ms. Grigg.
Good evening, Chair Mitchell, Commissioner Brawley. I'm Marcus Trathan with the law firm of Brooks Pierce, here on behalf of the applicant, Enbridge Parrot Holdings, LLC.
Good evening, Mr. Trathan.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Will Freeman. I'm here on behalf of the using and consuming public through the public staff.
Good evening, Mr. Freeman. Mr. Freeman, who do you have with you tonight?
We have in the back, we have an engineer, Mr. Mishna, and an economist, Mr. Henton.
All right. Good evening, gentlemen. All right. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to hear from PSNC's customers regarding their concerns with the pending application. In order to facilitate a full and fair opportunity for all speakers to participate, we will use the following procedures. In conducting this hearing, the Commission functions in a judicial capacity as we're required by North Carolina law. We largely follow the rules of civil procedure and the rules of evidence. Because the Commission is functioning like a court, we cannot respond to your questions, whether we're here to receive evidence from you in the form of your testimony. In addition, for these reasons, if you choose to testify tonight, you will be asked to swear to or affirm the truthfulness of your testimony. Witnesses who wish to testify must sign up with the public staff, and the public staff will call each witness in the order listed on its roster. When you hear your name called, please proceed to the stand, and I'll deliver the oath. At that point, you'll be asked to state your name and your address for purposes of the record, and then you may begin your testimony. Counsel for any party may ask questions of the witnesses tonight, and in addition, the Commission will have the opportunity to ask questions. This means that if you choose to testify, you may take questions from counsel or from the commissioners. Our testimony is being recorded by a court reporter. Therefore, to ensure the accuracy of the transcript, we ask that you speak slowly and audibly. Additionally, please remain quiet when you're not testifying so that the court reporter is able to hear the testifying witness and able to hear me. All right, in order to give everyone equal opportunity to testify, we will limit each public witness to 3 minutes, and you'll see the 3 minutes appear on the clock. All right, with that, we are ready to begin. Counsel, any preliminary matters that we need to address before we get started?
No, thank you.
All right, Mr. Freeman, you may call your first witness.
Thank you. And Commissioner, if I may, Chair, if I may, before we start, just to tell the audience.
Absolutely, go ahead.
I think I introduced myself as Will Freeman. I'm with the public staff. We have a team of economists, engineers, and accountants who have reviewed the filings made in this matter. We have filed testimony and entered into a settlement, which the chair indicated was filed on May 29th. It's available for your review at the commission's website. But the purpose of this hearing is to hear from the public. The commission is not going to issue an order until everyone has an opportunity to speak on this application in this matter. And the public staff and the company, both companies want to hear from y'all. If you could, when I call your name, sit in the middle chair, and that's when you'll be sworn in. If there's anyone who is not signed up, now is your chance. Is there anyone, if you'll just raise your hand, if anyone would like to speak but did not find the sign-up sheet? Okay, then I'm ready to call our first witness. The public staff calls Sandy Smith Nonini.
All right, good evening, Ms. Nonini. Do you wish to swear or affirm your testimony tonight? All right, would you raise your right hand, please?
Yes.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Freeman, go ahead.
If you could please spell your name and give the court reporter your address, and then tell us your gas provider.
Okay, it's, my legal name is Sandra, spelled the usual way, and my last name is Smith Nonini, hyphenated, and the Nonini is Nonini.
And your address, please.
2030 Inglewood Avenue in Durham, 27705,
And who's your gas provider?
Dominion.
If you wouldn't mind giving us your statement tonight. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, I just want to say that I'm just retired from being an adjunct assistant professor at UNC, and I've been writing a book for the past year on energy crises. And so that brings me to you because a lot of the material I've written about has dealt with gas and electricity, but a lot with gas. So I'm opposed to the takeover of our Dominion PSNC gas utility by Enbridge for several reasons. Enbridge is a very large U.S. pipeline owner, deeply invested in dirty fuels, with over 3,000 miles of oil and tar sands oil pipelines in the U.S. and Canada. It transports about 30% of the crude oil produced in North America and nearly 20% of U.S. natural gas consumed. It also, once it purchases this utility, if it does, and two other utilities so that it plans to purchase in Ohio and Utah, it will be serving 7 million gas customers in 5 states, making it the largest gas utility business by volume in North America. So a wealthy company like Enbridge is ideally set up to buy influence in the state legislature in support of its projects and to engage in corporate capture of utility regulators. Why does Enbridge want to own a utility? The company is following a new trend among large oil suppliers of balancing their oil holdings with gas infrastructure, which is seen as more promising for growth, while the shift to electric vehicles and predicted near-term shale oil depletion poses risks for oil. Having regulated assets with steady income from monthly rent payers is a stable source of profit compared to investment in oil or gas export, which is subject to volatile global markets. Ratepayer income raises credit ratings for a company like Enbridge because it allows it to seek bank financing, and it can also pass some of these financing costs to ratepayers if in a regulated utility for construction projects. It also will receive a very healthy guaranteed return on equity each year for utility owners. Enbridge is a large national company that supplies gas for both export and domestic use and will likely undertake to build more NC Pipeline's regional LNG projects like the Moriah Energy Center and promote more gas export and domestic usage by electric utilities, including Duke Energy, which is already building more gas plants than needed. Why is this a problem? Because new gas utility infrastructure spending is continuing to grow at a rate that far outpaces the number of new gas customers and is regarded as unsustainable. The rapid rise of investment in gas assets since 2018 is not based on consumer need. Rather, it reflects the high oil prices combined with new global export opportunities for shale gas. There's been a 400% rise in gas prices in that time and only 100% rise going back to 1997. I'm sorry. Over that time, there's been a 400% rise in gas prices and only a 100% rise in customer numbers.
If you could just wrap it up, Ms. Smith, Nonini, we've hit the end of our time.
Okay, well, I'd like to, would you give me a minute maybe?
Go ahead, Ms. Smith Noni, please finish up your testimony.
Ratepayers are likely to end up on the hook or indirectly affected if Enbridge engages in financing future gas infrastructure projects that serve both profit goals rather than public needs for energy services. Also, Enbridge's dirty energy assets, such as tar sands oil pipeline, suggests it will not be a trustworthy partner on addressing the climate emergency. Long-term financing for future gas projects are likely to delay the transition to low-carbon alternatives, which will speed climate change. I'm going to skip down to simply say that the more export of gas that goes on, the higher our domestic prices are likely to become. And briefly, I want to add that the Rocky Mountain Institute concludes that gas infrastructure in general is underregulated in the United States compared to electricity. And they list 14 states that are now working, their utility commissions are working hard to plan better, more carefully for the future in building gas infrastructure and avoiding unneeded infrastructure. And so I encourage the Utility Commission to look into those states. I have a list of them here, which I'm happy to pass along to you.
Thank you. Would you
Thank
be
you.
willing to allow that to be an exhibit in evidence? So we
Yes.
can have those states?
Yes, I'm going to submit both of these for you, and it has the references within it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Why don't we do this? Ms. Smith Nonini, the list of states that you would like to have submitted as an exhibit, let's mark that as Smith Nonini Exhibit 1. Would you hand it to Public Staff Attorney, please?
Chair, if I could, so back here, Mark Smith.
All right, well, let's do this. Why don't you let council take a look at the documents? And if there are no objections, we will admit the documents into evidence as Smith Nonini Exhibit 1 and Smith Nonini Exhibit 2.
Just okay.
It's fine.
No objection from PSNC.
All right, hearing no objection, those documents will be admitted in evidence. Mr. Freeman, call your next witness,
Thank you,
please.
Chair. The public staff calls Armstrong, Hart. Hello.
All right, good evening, ma'am. Do you wish to swear or affirm your testimony?
Clear.
Okay. Would you raise your right hand, left hand on the Bible? Do you swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, Mr. Freeman.
If you'd please spell your name and give us your address.
Armstrong, Armstrong. Hart, Hart. Pillow, Pillow.
And
My
your
given name.
and your address, please.
16 Glenmore Drive, Durham, North Carolina, 27707.
And who's your gas provider?
Dominion.
If you would make your statement, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I have a question that I want to suggest, and I would love for the commission to reflect on this question. Is this good for the people of North Carolina to have a giant corporation grow into a bigger monopoly of the LNG industry? 2, to have a company whose main objective is to make money for the shareholders to the detriment of the customers. To promote gas production as we stand on the brink of climate disaster in North Carolina. To take a gamble on a company who has a history of pipeline accidents. To trust an industry who has manipulated gas prices in Texas by holding back gas until demand is high right before the winter of 2021 that we all remember. And my sister has given me direct stories about that time for her. When the grid broke down and people went without energy for days and people died. To trust that this time Enbridge will be held accountable when we know that the industry is under-regulated by the Federal Energy FERC. The Rocky Mount Institute has reported this fact. To believe that Enbridge will not squash NC efforts to move to clean energy? I believe that this, quote, business combination transaction should be rejected by this commission. I believe the North Carolina Utilities Commission should side with the people of North Carolina. This is a serious, and then it will be a serious step toward mitigating climate disaster. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Pillow. Let me see if there are questions for you from council. All right, Commissioner Brawley, questions for the witness? All right, you may step down. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. All right, Mr. Freeman.
The public staff calls Tracy Sexton.
Good evening. Do you wish to swear or affirm your testimony? All right, raise your right hand, please, ma'am. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right.
Miss, if you would please spell your name for the court reporter.
My name is Tracy, Tracy, last name Sexton, Sexton.
If you could please give your address.
453 Berman Clayton Road, Timberlake, North Carolina, 27583.
And who's your gas provider?
Don't have one.
Okay. If you could please make your statement. Thank you.
Okay. I do not want a Dominion Energy Enbridge merger or purchase or buyout or whatever they're calling it. There are safety concerns with Enbridge. In July of 2010, an Enbridge pipeline ruptured under Marshall, Michigan, and released more than 840,000 gallons of oil into Talmadge Creek and more than 30 miles of the Kalamazoo River. Enbridge employees monitoring the pipeline from a control room in Alberta, Canada, took 17 hours to realize a rupture had occurred. The National Transportation Safety Board found that Enbridge knew of a defect in the pipeline 5 years before it burst. Hundreds of homes and businesses had to be evacuated. About 320 people reported symptoms from exposure to oil. About 150 families moved away permanently, and it was one of the costliest onshore spill cleanups in U.S. history, $800 million in 2010. How can Enbridge be trusted to potentially oversee a massive LNG storage facility in Person County and safeguard the surrounding community from afar, especially given their track record? Dominion Energy has been a poor communicator to concerned citizens in Person County, including those who live in Moriah Energy Center's proposed site. And unresponsive as this U.S.-based company is, I shudder to imagine how much worse it will be with Enbridge at the helm. Dominion's plans has seemed to be fly by the seat of your pants, from my point of view. They intentionally ignored the environmental impact, and our Person County Commissioners didn't help us out by not requesting an environmental impact statement. So Dominion literally has been plowing ahead, hoping to get a toehold to discourage anyone from stopping them now. But you, Commission, have the power to stop them. That's why I'm here tonight. Dominion has already broken the land. They didn't apply for the permit they should have asked for in order to have permission to literally muddy the waters of endangered species and Durham's drinking water. Again, they didn't ask, they just plowed ahead with a catch me if you can attitude. So please stop their plowing. I would like this project to die so that the land can live and those of us who live near it can live. And the rehabilitation of the land can begin now this summer. On May 23rd, I attended the Dominion Energy Information Meeting at Person County Auditorium. There, I heard one of Dominion employees say that Piedmont Electric would be adding a substation to supply Dominion's energy needs. That is mystifying to me. They're going to be sucking up so much energy that the local cooperative is going to have to put a substation on their property. And I hate to use that term, their property, because they have definitely not been good stewards of the land. And I invite you to look at Sound River's website. They have a picture, an aerial photo of the devastation, the sickening sight that they have created. And one of the employees at that information meeting went down the path of, well, what we're doing on our land is all legal. What they have been doing may be technically legal, but is neither moral nor ethical. Their profit grasp is literally going to leave us gasping for air in the toxic plume they are creating. Again, Dominion doesn't answer all our questions and keeps things close to the vest to prevent the community from having all the information about the scope of this project. And they seem to have no answers about the life of the project and the decommissioning of it. I think because they think it will be someone else's problem, because they are just a pass-through company for Enbridge. So please stop these big corporations from merging, buying, or whatever they call it. And I plead, Commission, do your best job to protect us citizens.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sexton. Will you confirm for me that you are a resident of Person County?
Yes, that is my permanent address.
Okay. All right, questions from council?
No questions from the public staff.
Questions from commission? All right, thank you for coming out tonight. You may step down. We appreciate your testimony.
Public staff calls Lib Hutchby.
Good evening, Ms. Hutchby. Do you wish to swear or affirm your testimony tonight? All right. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Ms. Hutchby, if you could lean in close to the microphone and spell your name for us.
I'm sorry, say it. I'm hard.
Would you, I'm sorry, would you please spell your name?
Lib Hutchby, L-I-B-H-U-T-C-H-B-Y,
Could you please tell us your address?
108 Standish Drive, Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
And who's your gas provider?
Dominion Energy.
Would you give us your statement, please?
Yes, please. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. It really sort of surprises me that we even have this happening. Enbridge is really, in my opinion, not a fit company to come into North Carolina. NC Utilities Commission, I don't know where the other members are, but please relate to them that it is of utmost importance that you choose not to approve a merger of Dominion Energy, a public service, with Enbridge Energy Partners. They had a debt in March of 2024 of $67.77 billion. Now, you know, if you and I went to the bank and asked for money, especially somebody like me who's on Social Security, we're not going to get a dime. But this is suggesting that you might even consider having a company, a corporation this large, with this much debt come into North Carolina and then be expected to behave themselves. Besides being heavily in debt already, their safety record is abysmal. The Kalamazoo River oil spill occurred in July 2010 when a pipeline operated by Enbridge burst and flowed into the Talmadge Creek, a tributary of the Kalamazoo River near Marshall, Michigan. A 6-foot break in the pipeline resulted in one of the largest inland oil spills in U.S. history. Why would we want this company to come to North Carolina? The EPA put the amount at more than 1 million gallons, but Enbridge had estimated 840,000 gallons oil spill. The spill was over 1 million gallons of oil into a tributary, and part of the problem was that the monitoring was being done in Canada, and it took 17 hours for them to even realize there was a spill. So there's some problems. Neighbors near this spill were told that there could be some remediation, and maybe they'd have it done in 4 months, but it took 4 years. The rupture in the pipeline wasn't discovered for 17 hours, and you know, this is not right. Okay. An investigation by the National Transportation Safety Board said the pipeline ruptured because of corrosion and cracking. It found that Enbridge was aware of six crack-like defects in line 6B 5 years before the pipeline broke open, but did nothing to fix them. Investigators said there were quote unquote pervasive organizational failures, end of quote, by Enbridge. The NTSB also blamed weak regulations and ineffective oversight by the federal agency and oversees pipelines. Enbridge has paid millions of dollars in fines, and as stated from the beginning of my comment, their debt is in the billions, which should be a red flag for the North Carolina Utilities Commission to say no to their request. Prevention of disastrous mistakes will improve the trust we need to have in our government appointed officials. We expect the state to be safer than it sounds like it might be if Enbridge comes to town. So we might appreciate your understanding that Enbridge needs to be honest and forthright, and that is not what the history that we have found in our research has shown. So we are pleading with all of you to make the decision not to accept their application.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hutchby. Let me see if there are questions for you from council.
No questions.
All right, thank you for coming out tonight. We appreciate your testimony.
The public staff calls Keith Sexton.
All right, good evening, Mr. Sexton. Do you wish to swear or affirm your testimony?
I swear.
All right, raise your right hand, please, sir. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right.
I'm Reverend Keith Sexton. I represent North Carolina
Just-
United.
Before we start, if you could please spell your name and give your address.
KEITHSEXTON. I represent.
And
North
if
Carolina.
you give us your address, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
453 Berman Clayton Road, Timberlake, North Carolina. I do not have gas service, but I represent North Carolina United Methodist Creation Care and our care for the climate and churches and parishioners throughout eastern North Carolina from the Alamance County line to the coast who are gas customers. Today, we're facing a gushing, mighty stream of damage and injustice. The North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality has found sediment is indeed polluting streams downstream surrounding Dominion Energy's MEC LNG facility under construction in Person County. Turbidity is over 700 NTUs, which is many times over the state standard. This commission is our guard dog. What happens when guard dogs sleep or let the industry self-regulate? Love Canal. PCBs are dumped in Warren County. Banks pursue easy profits and some prime lending, and the entire economy tanks. Boeing cuts corners and doors blow off mid-flight. And no one can say Duke Energy without saying coal ash. Dominion Energy has proven to be willingly negligent, violating state environmental standards just to save some money. Dominion has moved ahead without waiting for all permits to be filed and approved. So what do you think is going to happen when a foreign company buys Dominion and 3 to 5 years from now, the true environmental damage comes to light that will rival Duke's coal ash debacle? Who will be held responsible? High-paid law firms will be pointing fingers in every direction. And just like Duke Energy, no corporate executive at Dominion or Enbridge would be held accountable for their mismanagement or their gross negligence. And we do know this, the stockholders of Enbridge and Dominion will continue to get their quarterly dividends. And just like Duke Energy, they will not receive an invoice for the environmental damage and remediation. Ratepayers will pay through the nose for the environmental damage that is coming. This sale, this merger, this smoke-filled deal is about money. It's never been about ratepayers or energy needs. And it's not about the land or the farms or the families that live upon these lands. Natural gas is not clean energy. That is a marketing lie. Methane in LNG is 80 times more dangerous to the atmosphere than CO2, and it accelerates climate change. Current solar energy and battery technology can provide all the power that is necessary at zero emissions. So this whole project is a boondoggle. Solar in Raleigh, Durham, and Cary parking lots can provide all the energy needed. If you don't believe it, ask IKEA. Moreover, the rating agency Moody's swiftly downgraded Enbridge as a negative on this LNG solution because it's like investing in outhouses when everyone's buying low-flow toilets. You want to guess who's going to be left holding the bag when this turns sour and the robber barons have fleeced this company of its profits, leaving an over-leveraged corporation behind and ecological damage beyond imagination? Dominion's already failed to be a good steward of the earth. Enbridge has left death in the rivers. And for 34 years and over 1,500 sermons, I've never uttered these words, and I've shaken my boots to say them tonight. I've been sent here by God to warn you. This is going to turn into ecological disaster. Assuredly as you love your children, your grandchildren, assuredly as Duke spilled coal ash on God's good earth, assuredly as anything you can believe, including the sunrise, Person County and the people of Person County will discover disaster because of this. History teaches us that energy companies cannot be trusted with God's creation. Enbridge specifically, as you've heard, lost any control of their pipeline for 7 hours. Enbridge is financially, ecologically, and a community disaster in waiting. And so help me, who's going to make it whole when this happens? Enbridge won't, and you can take that to the bank. A wise man once said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. A no by this commission is worth hundreds of millions of dollars in losses prevented and unrepairable ecological damage avoided. There is no other answer that can be justified for the land, the people, or the future than no. By heaven, by all that is righteous, the only prudent and just answer is no. And I ask you, by all that is holy, say no to this boondoggle, please.
All right, let me see if there are questions for you, Mr. Sexton, from council.
No questions.
Commissioner Brawley. All right, you may step down. Thank you for coming out, sir. All right, I'd just like to remind the audience, let's remain quiet, please, not interfere with the court reporter's ability to do her job. All right, Mr. Freeman, please call your next witness.
The public staff calls Amy Harvey.
All right.
Ann Harvey, so that's my bad handwriting there.
Ms. Harvey, do you wish to swear or affirm your testimony?
Affirm, please.
All right. Do you, raise your right hand, please? Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, Mr. Freeman.
Could you please spell your name?
Ann, A-N-N-E, Harvey, H-A-R-V-E-Y,
And if you'll give us your,
a Dominion customer at 6734 Chauncey Drive in Raleigh, 27615.
if you please give us your statement, testimony.
Good evening. I'm here tonight as a ratepayer and as an attorney for the Southern Coalition for Social Justice. SCSJ represents communities across North Carolina in pursuit of social justice, including environmental justice and energy equity. The proposed business combination transaction or merger is not justified by public convenience and necessity as required by North Carolina General Statute 62-111A. As you've already heard extensively this evening, Enbridge has a history of health, safety, and environmental violations. In addition to the Kalamazoo spill that you've heard about from 2002 to 2018, Enbridge and its joint ventures and subsidiaries reported 307 hazardous liquid incidents to federal regulators. That's an average of 1 incident every 20 days. These spills released a total of 2.8 million gallons, or more than 4 Olympic-sized swimming pools of hazardous liquid into the environment. 30 of these incidents were reported to contaminate water resources, including 17 which contaminated groundwater. In addition to the 2010 spill in Kalamazoo, over the 2002 to 2018 period, there were 42 other incidents larger than 2,100 gallons. Enbridge is also financially unstable. Ratings agency Moody's Analytics recently downgraded the outlook for Enbridge and 4 of its subsidiaries from stable to negative, saying that this deal to acquire Dominion Utilities will only add pressure to an already weak financial profile. Given the volatility of the natural gas supply, an already weak profile could add to price instability, leading to rate hikes for ratepayers and energy supply problems. For example, Enbridge recently merged with Dominion Energy Ohio and promptly requested a rate increase of 30% on its basic rate charge to go into effect next year, in addition to monthly add-on charges known as riders. Finally, Enbridge has a history of lawbreaking and taking advantage of consumers. For example, inaccuracies in Enbridge's meter reading in Ontario, Canada, led to bills of up to at least $7,000 for some customers and a $250,000 fine for Enbridge. Enbridge has, moreover, entirely disregarded requirements to remove its Line 5 pipeline in the Midwest after the expiration of a decades-long easement, which expired over 10 years ago now. Line 5 crosses and poses serious environmental threats to indigenous lands, and since 1953 has had at least 29 leaks, spilling 4.5 million liters of oil into the environment, contaminating waterways. A federal judge has already ordered Enbridge to pay $5.1 million for trespassing on lands owned by the Bad River Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa, and to remove the Line 5 pipeline within 3 years. Of course, instead of complying, Enbridge has appealed that, leading to further delay and additional harm and trespass to indigenous lands and private property. These are facts, not speculative fears. Taken together with innumerable other instances of safety and environmental violations, this merger is not justified by public convenience and necessity. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Harvey. Let me see if there are questions for you from council.
No questions.
All right, Commissioner Brawley. All right. Thank you for coming out. We appreciate your testimony. All right, Mr. Freeman.
Chair, we're halfway through. The public staff would call Katie Moore as our next witness.
All right. Good evening, Ms. Moore. Do you wish to swear or affirm your testimony?
I'll affirm. Thank you.
All right. Raise your right hand, please, ma'am. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right.
If you could please spell your name and give us your address and gas provider.
Sure. I'm Katie Moore, K-A-T-I-E-M-O-O-R-E. My address is 411 North Lamar Street, Roxborough, North Carolina, 27573. And I am unfortunately a Dominion customer. I have spent the last 10 years as an air quality and public health researcher, primarily working with communities who live adjacent to oil and gas infrastructure. I found myself last year learning that I was about to become a community member who was living in a county that was about to be filled with oil and gas infrastructure. And since then, I've been working with many of those that you heard today on the No MEC campaign to stop Dominion Energy's Mariah Energy Center from being built. We strongly oppose the merger with Enbridge, and we ask that y'all not let it go forward. I've been working on the air permit that Dominion submitted for the MEC facility, and they have done everything in their power to skirt regulations and have not done anything to make this facility safe. We have serious concerns about air emissions, explosion risk. They've made ridiculous claims to bend over backwards so they don't have to create a risk management plan. They've really done nothing to protect and ensure that this facility will be operated in a safe manner. I don't know why on earth we would want to bring in Enbridge, a company that has a notoriously bad safety record. That's probably the first thing that most people associate with Enbridge, and that is for good reason, as you all have heard today. They operate terribly, and they're based in Canada. So while it's been virtually impossible to get even basic answers out of Dominion about this facility that is planned, we imagine that it's going to be infinitely harder still to get any answers or much less restitution out of Enbridge if and likely when an accident happens at this facility. All of this activity, all of this build out of natural gas infrastructure that Dominion and Duke and Enbridge are planning is just to put more money in their pockets. It makes me, they keep talking about reliability, but natural gas is not reliable. It's not going to save us when it's really hot or when it's really cold, which we know it's going to be. We have enough examples from other parts of the country and from our own state to know that it's not going to be the answer. This is just about making them more money, and there is nothing that I have seen in this merger or in the gas build out more broadly that is going to benefit me as a ratepayer or as a community member who lives close to one of their facilities. This is a bad deal, and I just don't, there's nothing that I've seen in any of this work over almost a year that that has showed me any evidence that this is going to be good for us. So I'm asking that y'all say no, and I would like for both Enbridge and Dominion to understand that this is a community of people and a state of people who care deeply about our land, and we are not going to stop fighting y'all. So I think it's going to be a bad deal for you too. So thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to testify today.
All right, Ms. Moore, let me see if there are questions for you from council.
No questions.
All right, Commissioner Brawley. All right, Ms. Moore, you may step down. Thank you for your testimony tonight.
Thank you.
Chair, the public staff calls Andrea Childers. Andrew Childers?
All right, good evening, Ms. Childers. Do you wish to swear or affirm your testimony?
Affirm.
All right, raise your right hand, please, ma'am. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, Mr. Freeman.
Could you please spell your name and address?
Andrea Childers, Childers.
And address, if you'll give us your address and gas provider.
It is 270 Blackberry Lane. That's in Rougemont, North Carolina. I do not have Dominion. I do not have the option to receive Dominion as my gas provider. We have to use liquid propane. My name is Andrea Childers. In 1975, when I was 9 years old, my family moved to North Carolina. North Carolina is my home. It has been my home for 50 years. I am here because I love my home, and I believe to allow Enbridge, soon to be the largest methane gas company in North America, to buy PSNC would be harmful to our state and its citizens. As it stands now, Enbridge is gobbling up smaller methane utilities all over this country, and soon it will have no competitors. When we have monopolies over utilities, has that ever been good for workers or consumers? History shows us over and over again, when monopolies exist, workers are forced to accept low wages, long hours, bad working conditions, and horrible benefits. Consumers are forced to be charged exorbitant rates for poor service with no recourse or alternative. Not only is Enbridge poised to hold a monopoly in the United States, it's a foreign corporation whose headquarters is located in another country. I think that is very unwise and horribly dangerous to allow a foreign country that much control over our own country's natural resources. I have been a resident of Person County for 31 years. Currently, Dominion Energy has plans and has begun to pave the way for construction of the Mariah Energy Center. If built, this facility will be less than a half a mile from my home of 31 years. As it stands now, it will be difficult for my family and my neighbors to seek compensation from an American corporation should something catastrophic that causes harm to property, life, and limb at the Mariah Energy Center. How can residents of Person County with limited means possibly seek compensation from a foreign company? What assurances will the state of North Carolina give us, its citizens, that we will be protected by Enbridge? Once again, I find myself sitting before a government entity begging you to do the right thing. Place the well-beings of your citizens over corporate greed.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Let me see if there are questions for you from council.
No questions.
Mr. Brawley.
No question.
All right, you may step down. Thank you for coming out. All right, Mr. Freeman.
The public staff calls Juhi Modi.
All right, do you wish to swear or affirm your testimony tonight?
Affirm.
All right, raise your right hand, please. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Could you please spell your name and pronounce it? And I apologize if I got it wrong.
I think you got it right. Juhi Modi. That's Juhi, last name Modi.
And if you'll give us your address and gas provider.
311 Tecumseh. That's Tecumseh Court, Cary 27513. And I'm a Dominion customer.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Juhi, and I am here to express my opposition to Enbridge's proposed acquisition of PSNC. Firstly, like you've heard from other folks, PSNC is responsible for the proposed Mariah Energy Center, or the MEC, in Person County. What will the impact of this acquisition be on the operations and handling of the MEC? Dominion Energy has already failed time and time again to respond to the dire concerns that my friends in Person County have, who would be intensely negatively affected by this project. As it stands, folks are very concerned about the safety risks of this facility, given the refusal to establish proper protocol in the case of an accident. Given Enbridge's history of accidents and safety protocol breaches, how can they be trusted to potentially oversee this massive LNG storage facility and protect the surrounding community? From 2002 to 2018, Enbridge and its joint ventures, like you've heard already, reported 307 hazardous liquid incidents. And since 2000, Enbridge has been fined more than $284 million due to violations of environmental regulations, pipeline safety, and even workplace safety and health. You've already heard this before, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Enbridge's 2010 pipeline rupture in Michigan that released more than 840,000 gallons of oil into Talmadge Creek and the Kalamazoo River. The two things that are striking about that incident is that Enbridge employees were monitoring this pipeline from Canada and took 17 hours to realize that a rupture had occurred. The National Transportation Safety Board found that Enbridge knew of a defect in the pipeline 5 years before it burst. How can we allow a company with this kind of track record to do business in North Carolina? And if the Mariah Energy Center is built, how can we trust them to keep the community safe from afar? I'm also concerned about the motives that this Canadian multinational oil and gas company has in seeking to acquire our state's gas company.
Given that Enbridge owns the longest methane gas pipeline network in the whole country, I'm concerned that this acquisition is going to lead them to expand fossil fuel infrastructure in North Carolina. I'm concerned because, one, climate change is already upon us. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, to prevent us from reaching the tipping point of 1.5 degrees Celsius global temperature, greenhouse gas emissions must peak before 2025 at the latest. We are in 2024 right now, and we cannot afford to build more methane gas pipelines that are going to lock us into emitting greenhouse gases for decades. Additionally, many customers cannot financially afford to have their bills increased even more to pay for expensive gas projects that are killing us. To close, I urge the Commission to deny the request to authorize Dominion Energy sale of PSNC to Enbridge.
All right, let me see if there are questions from council for the witness.
No questions.
All right, Commissioner Brawley. All right, you may step down.
The public staff calls Dill Lee. If you'd please come forward. You don't wish to make a statement? No. All right, thank you. We appreciate your comment. The public staff calls Kathy Buckley.
Good evening, Ms. Buckley. Do you wish to swear or affirm your testimony? All right, raise your right hand, please, ma'am. You affirm that your testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right.
It's Kathy, Cathy, Buckley, Buckley, 710 Independence Place, Raleigh. And I don't get gas.
You read my mind. Thank you.
Thanks for this opportunity to speak tonight. And before I start speaking, I just want to point out that I was at the door before 7 o'clock and it was locked and nobody was answering the bell. And it took me, 10 minutes to get in here. So maybe take care of that next time. I commend my previous, the previous speakers tonight who have covered a good many of the points that I was going to make. So I will, I think, be brief. And I also appreciated the questions at the expert witness hearing on June 11th from Commissioners Hughes, Tucker, and you, Chair Mitchell. In regard to Commissioner Hughes's question regarding methane leakage, I agree the Enbridge employees' response was very general and unsatisfactory. And that, of course, is a major issue with, with the whole issue of fossil gas. And hearing Enbridge's goal of being carbon neutral in 2050, it's just a tragic joke. We're either going to be scrambling to get to zero emissions in a few years, as Julie has pointed out, or it'll simply be too late, and there's no point in just trying. And for a project like this, I suggest that we ratepayers need a short, understandable document indicating why the companies wish to merge, for example, how it will benefit the companies, and how it will benefit or cost ratepayers, so that we have a better understanding of very complex issues in the future. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Buckley. Let me see if there are questions.
No questions. Thank you.
From council. All right, thank you for coming out tonight. We appreciate your testimony.
The public staff would call Elizabeth Aran. Thank you.
All right, good evening, ma'am. Do you wish to swear or affirm your testimony?
Yes.
Okay, why don't you raise your right hand? Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
If you could please spell your name.
Sure. My name is Elizabeth Arand, Elizabeth, Arand, Arant.
And if you could give us your address, please.
Sure. It's 804 Berkeley Street, Durham 27705.
And who provides your gas?
Duke Energy. Thank you. All right.
My name is Elizabeth Arant. I live in Durham. I became aware of this merger through NOMEC, which is a group opposing Dominion's plan to install a fracked methane storage facility in Person County. I became involved with that because even though I don't share a county with that project, I do share a watershed, and any effects to the water supply there will affect my drinking water reservoir in Durham. Through working with NOMEC, I have seen firsthand how difficult it is to hold a energy company accountable or get answers or responses to local concerns. I am very concerned about the prospect of a merger with Enbridge, which is a much, much larger and foreign-based company with a terrible safety record. As previous comments have stated, I don't see a clear reason for this. Dominion has not been transparent in this case, nor has Enbridge. In this time of increasingly frequent climate disasters and global unrest, I feel very concerned with a foreign-based, huge multinational company taking over the energy infrastructure in my state. This provides even more barriers to holding this company accountable or ensuring that they are obeying safety regulations. At this point, most regulations are enforced through monetary fines, which mean little to nothing to a company of the scale of Enbridge with profits like theirs. So essentially, they will be unregulated and be able to break the few regulations that keep them from harming the environment and the communities around the projects. That's really all I want to say. I've been watching on YouTube because I also was locked out of the building, and so I think most of these points have been brought up very eloquently already. I just want to voice my concern and also note that there are many people who care deeply about this issue who couldn't be here because it's on a weeknight in Raleigh, and I understand it has to be held somewhere at some time, but there are a lot of people who couldn't make it who are affected throughout the state and throughout surrounding counties. So I hope you take into account their concerns as well.
All right, thank you, Ms. Arand. When you say you were locked out of the building just now, which door did you try to come in?
All of them.
Okay.
I rang the bells as well. I mean, I was probably 15 minutes late.
Okay. All right. All right, let me see if there are questions for the witness from council.
No questions.
Okay. Commissioner Frawley. All right, thank you for coming out tonight. We appreciate your testimony.
Are there any other witnesses who didn't sign up who would like to speak tonight? I think you already spoke. I think you spoke so eloquently the first time, we don't need to hear again. But Chair, I am aware of one witness, and Mr. Mitchell is aware of another who came under the impression that they were summoned to appear here. I think some witnesses may have misapprehended the purpose of the notice, but I'm aware of no other witnesses who have testimony for today.
All right, thank you, Mr. Freeman. With that, we've come to the end of our, I see a hand raised in the back. I'm not sure what's. Ma'am, if I will direct you to touch base with Mr. Freeman at the close of the hearing and he can answer your questions. The public staff is here tonight to answer your questions and the company is here as well. All right, so unless there are any other witnesses in the audience that have not yet testified that would like to testify, we've come to the end of the evening. We appreciate your coming out tonight and sharing your testimony with us. And with that, we will be adjourned. Thank you very much. And we're off the record.